Today we welcome Maribel Butts to Valley Fever Voices, our online Valley Fever Survivor video series.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. When I first got valley fever, I was 5 months post-transplant, kidney transplant. I already had kidney disease and I waited 5 years for this transplant and was pretty much at home for the first 4 months. I was highly immunocompromised. So there was a timeline, when to go out in the public. And at the 4-month, 5-month mark is the time they say, okay, you could travel. You're good to go, travel. So I went down to visit my sister, which was something I've done, all throughout my life, going to LA. That's a route, going down Highway 5 was a route that I've gone through since I was a kid. So I didn't think there was going to be no problem with just a local, to me, that's, staying in state. It wasn't like I was going to fly anywhere. So I felt comfortable driving to LA post-transplant. And coming back home, we actually rushed back home because we had news back home that my husband's grandmother wasn't doing well. So we took off and left, and we got a flat tire after we after the Grapevine, about Kalinga area, is where we had a flat tire. And that's where I think I could have got it there. But, as they say, I probably could have got it anywhere in Highway 5. So that was July of 2010 when that happened. And I came home. We went through, unfortunately, his grandmother passed away, and there was a funeral, and I got sick. And I thought maybe it was a lot on my body to go through the mourning process. And that's, basically when my body started breaking down, that I know that pattern, especially when, I'm going through something. But I told my social worker right away that, hey, I'm having a fever, and they thought I probably caught a bug. It was probably the flu. But then my temperature started to rise up higher, so we went to emergency right away. And when we got to the emergency room, they tested me for everything. And of course, I think they thought, I probably had some kind of infection. So they were already giving me some antibiotic, IV antibiotic, which, that makes it worse. But once they assigned me to an infection disease doctor, thankfully my doctor, she asked where my whereabouts in the past 2 weeks. And, I told her, yeah, I just came from LA, and she stopped me there, and she was like, okay, LA, did you go by the Bakersfield area? And I'm like, well, Highway 5. And so she said, okay, I think this could be valley fever. And thankfully she knew it only because she went to, I want to say not a symposium, but she learned about it. I was the first valley fever patient she had. But just because she did learn about it recently, she understood that epidemic area. So she put antifungals on board along with it. But it took a bronchoscopy to finally get the sample. And, I think about a week or a week and a half later, they were able to say, yeah, it's definitely a mold or some kind of fungus. So they started treating me just with the antifungal from there.
Do you know what your titer was at that time?
I think it was 1 point. It was still 1 point something. I think maybe.
We can put it in as a graphical overlay for the interview.
Okay.
Yeah, was it a 1 to 8 or higher?
I believe so. It was already considered disseminated at that time.
Yeah, so 1 to 16 or higher is considered most likely to have disseminated.
Yeah. But it wasn't, it was still, she felt like it was still controlled. It was just in the lungs. That's all they seen it at that time. So I went about my healing, and, they pretty much thought that, with the medication, that it should treat it well. But of course, I was also taking immunosuppression. So I think the combination of those medications, it just couldn't heal.
Were you able to stop taking antibiotics, or were you taking antibiotics and antifungals together?
At first, it was I did the series at the hospital, but I came home with antifungals,
Okay.
and they actually didn't, actually maybe it wasn't considered disseminated yet, because it was a year later is when I started to limp, and I was already emailing back and forth about these different symptoms I started getting. But I did I felt like I recovered, but when I think back, I probably didn't. I just didn't have the fever, and I wasn't achy as much, and I even started working again, and was at work is when I started to get shoulder pains, and I noticed I started having problems even with my hip. So when I went back to my ID, it was, I think, different symptoms for her. Like I don't think she really knew, knew that it was valley fever spreading. So she ordered x-rays, and nothing was showing up on the x-rays. But when I started to get back pain, that's when she said, okay, we need to do a scan. So when they did the body scan, it lit up. It lit up from my hip to my back to my shoulder, my chest area. So that's when I got hospitalized right away, and they started coming up with a plan to do surgeries. But it was also, actually, let me back up. It wasn't until I started getting bumps that she said, okay, let's get the body scan, because I started to get a bump here in my chest area and here on my shoulder. And those were areas that, we were already emailing back and forth to the doctor about. But unfortunately, I just think she just thought when I was first achy that it was the medication that was probably, causing the achiness around my body. And then, but when I did started having the bumps, that's when she knew it was valley fever. And I started getting debridements on them. And they would try to remove it. And I think it was like probably 3 months of trying to go in there, come back in, and it would still start, pussing up. And it was hard to get rid of.
How was that handled? Was that done through surgery or done through needle debridement?
It was needle debridements at first, and then surgery. So like on my shoulder, you could see, I don't know if you could see it, but it's the same area that they just operated on, and they had to operate down. You can't see it because of the bandage that I have here, but they operated down to here. But I actually documented it. I have photos of it, of how it started, and then even on my chest area. And here, they had to you could see it. So this has been healing since they went in here. And the way they removed it that way, they had to go into my collarbone, take out the bone, like that part of the bone that was infected. And then what they decided to do was to leave it open. So it was just a big hole, open wound. And I had to have a wound vac attached to it for, I think it was 3 months that it took. And that was the way that they were going to clean it up real good. And since then, it's been okay. But like I said, this is a wound that is probably, I don't know if it's been like this since 2012. It's still healing.
What medication were you on, and are you still on the same medication for valley fever?
I'm on they first put me on fluconazole, so I was on that for, a couple years. And then with the second, when I started getting it in the bones, that was the first time I did the amphotericin treatments. So I did that for the first time I did it for a couple months because I was going through the surgeries too, and I still had the transplant at the time when I first went through my amphotericin treatments. And they already told me before I started that that medication was going to probably most likely damage the transplant, but there was no choice. That was the most effective medicine that was going to, penetrate the bones and, that. So we went with it. But it was very hard going through those first treatments. I mean, I was always sick. My hair fell out. I probably had a lot of the classic symptoms, but we got through it. And after UC Davis, because I had the transplant, I was able to see UC Davis's infectious disease doctors. So they worked with my infectious disease doctor at Kaiser. And they kind of communicated a lot on how to treat me. So the medication they wanted to try was itraconazole. And I was on itraconazole probably for a year and a half until I started bloating and getting, I was getting a lot of, I think that's what started causing a lot of bloating. And then my kidneys failed. And when they did the biopsy, they said it was definitely toxicity from the medications. So when my kidneys failed, they decided to change again my medication because I started getting fluid in my heart.
Now, I was just going to ask you, did you have any heart trouble? Because it's renowned for causing sudden death, itraconazole.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And that's scary, real scary.
I'm so glad they changed it because I didn't know that side effect until later. And every time I had to take it with like something that was acidic. So it was it was a medication that was like every time I had to drink like a coffee, or they even said Coke, drink it with Coke, and I don't even drink Coke, but something acidic had to go with it. But yeah, they actually now made it classified since I had the fluid in my heart. I'm now allergic. That's one of my medications that I'm allergic to. So now I've been on voriconazole ever since, and that's been, I think, doing okay for me.
What dosage?
I'm sorry, I have so much medications. Let's see. I have it here. I might have to get back to you on that one too.
That's all right. So you take medications for your rejection, so you don't have rejection of your transplant. And you take medications for valley fever. Do you take medications for anything else?
Actually, I'm done with all the rejection medication. For when my kidneys did reject, I was on like steroid, so that did not help my valley fever. But it was like they always had to try to balance the two diseases. And they did what they could do to try to save my transplant. But with the occurrence I had last year about this time, my kidney actually went into full rejection. I started to pee blood, everything, and so they had to remove it. And I went back on amphotericin because my lower spine lit up. It was just a small area. They didn't think they needed to do surgery at the time. But after I did the amphotericin, that's when my kidneys fully rejected, and they had to remove it completely. And I went into complete, that's when I started hemodialysis.
Are you on a list to try to get another kidney?
They actually listed me because my titer was 0, probably like 6 months after that occurrence. Um, so I was listed, and then when I had gotten sick again, um, I'm now on a hold status. So I really don't know my future with the transplant. It's, now that I'm like on the group and really kind of understanding this disease more, it's really hard to say what's going to happen.
If you could tell someone that's watching this about valley fever and what it has done to your life, uh, what would you like to say that they should take away from what you're saying here?
That it's something to really be aware of, for one. And I've, been trying to tell my family, and I actually had a family member that had valley fever too. So they, I knew of it a little bit, but I didn't know the epidemic areas. So I think that's something that is very important for people to know, is that there is these epidemic areas, especially if you live here in California. Um, and I mean, everybody that I know that drives through Highway 5, they kind of know my story, and I'm always like, don't roll up your windows, don't turn on the vent, that kind of thing, or mask up, because I mean, I've drove through LA a couple times after, but I've wore a mask, and I don't, now that I know it's not enough, so I would just tell people to be educated, because it is a deadly disease. I mean, it's not just me that's immunosuppressed that had gotten it so bad. It's normal people, that are getting this. I know they said that, I was a high risk class, my race, my, being immunosuppressed, but, being a part of the group, I see that it really just affects anybody. So I think everyone needs to know, about valley fever, what it could do, and the areas that you can catch it.
We've been collecting questionnaires from people for the past over a dozen years now. And I would say the vast majority of people are not immunosuppressed, never had anything wrong with them prior to the valley fever case. And therefore, yes, if you're at risk and you have an immunosuppression for one reason or another, of course, you're liable to get a worse case right away, but it doesn't stop anybody from getting it. If you inhale it, you have it, and that's all it takes. And so far, anyway, there's no cure, but hopefully one day there will be one.
Yes, that's what we're hoping for.
Has anyone approached you from the CDC?
No, nothing yet. No.
And do you have insurance to cover all this? I mean, the costs that are involved are enormous.
Oh, they are. Thankfully, my husband, he has pretty good insurance, but it's been really difficult because he's my caregiver as well. So he's missed a lot of work. He's used all his paid leave, his vacation time, just to take care of me. And just recently, like I mentioned earlier, he had to take paid leave off, but he had to take care of me. There was, the other choice was that they were saying they could put me in a home, like not a care home, but yeah, a care home, assisted, just to get to my treatments, because I did dialysis and I had the amphotericin treatments right after. So they wanted to make sure I was going to be able to get to all my treatments. And I had to drive a little bit further for the amphotericin because locally they didn't have any space. So I needed, a dependable person to take me. So he took that time off just recently, and it has probably affected us in so many ways, financially, emotionally. It's been a lot. It's been a lot to deal with.
How would you say your children had to handle their mom having all these issues? How would you say your children have handled it, and what has it meant to them?
It's been difficult, they had to watch me, with my kidney disease, most of their life, you know, but the valley fever on top of it and all the surgeries, I mean, that was difficult, you know, for them to go through. And I know it affected them in a lot of ways. And that's why we try to keep them going and keep them active. And they still have their activities and stuff. But while I was going through my surgeries, I mean, every time they wanted to be with me, you know, and they wanted to sit in that waiting room. That was their comfort. So they missed school. And I couldn't, you know, at that time, that was how we dealt with it. You know, we're very close, for one. We're a pretty close-knit family. So, you know, every single surgery, they wanted to be there. And, you know, till this day, you know, they're still dealing and coping with, you know, what's going on with me.
It's the thing people mostly don't recognize them when, whether it's a transplant situation, you know, or kidney failure, as in your case now, as well as valley fever. It takes its toll on every person who loves you. And
Yes.
so everyone around you suffers along with you. It's not just one person is victimized or is sick. It's
Yeah.
the whole family that pays the toll for that.
Yeah.
And you're very fortunate to have such a loving family. You've done something really right with your kids. So you should be
Yeah.
applauded for how you brought your children up to be such wonderful people.
And they've learned to advocate too, you know, because I've done it for so long. So they also kind of do their own little advocating as well, which is, you know, I think it's awesome what you guys do too. And you know, I commend you a lot. And that's what I hope for with my sons as well.
Well, we really appreciate you wanting to be a part of our series here for people. And we've been doing this, as you know, for 13 years, trying to get the word out, bringing awareness to the valley fever community and beyond. And it's an uphill battle to get the truth out there.
Yes, I am thankful for all you guys, for what you guys have done. I mean, I don't know if you remember, when I first I typed in, the first thing I got was your website. So that was really helpful. I went through the series of videotapes, I mean, the YouTube series, and that helped a lot. And then just recently being a part of the group has been another aspect that I'm just thankful for. Because awareness helps, you know, it helps with just advocating for yourself. Um, it's good to know. And there's not a whole lot of real information out there. So hearing it from other patients is like, that's the source, you know?
Yeah, it's really a shame that with so much research, it could be out there. In fact, some of it has been in the peer-reviewed journals for most of a century, but it's been buried. People need to be bringing that out and have everyone see it with the full daylight to understand exactly what's going on and what has been going on for years, because there has to be an end to this.
Yeah. Yes. And I see that there's more being done, and I know that's through the efforts, all these efforts. So we'll get there, right?
Oh yeah.
It's a matter of how soon versus how far. So that's
Yeah.
where we're at. And so how many days a week do you actually have your dialysis?
3 times a week.
And how long does something like that actually take? I don't know if people are familiar with what you do when you actually have to have dialysis.
Hemodialysis is basically, right now I have a port in here. Um, they're waiting to put a permanent access. Oh, that's another thing I do have. After this last occurrence, I have ascites. I don't know if you're familiar with ascites, but it's accumulation in the tummy. And they believe it's one of the side effects from the amphotericin because it's my liver enzymes right now are high. But so I'm kind of dealing with that as well. But hemodialysis treatments is basically they clean your blood, and they're 3.5 hours is for me because I'm little. Some people, if are bigger in stature, they will have to be there longer. But because I'm petite, my treatment's 3.5 hours. Um, but that basically kind of is a artificial kidney for me right now. That's what's cleaning my blood and yeah.
So what do your doctors tell you at this point? What do they say? Just, we're going to just keep doing this for however long we have to do it? Or do they see something that they can do for you for the future? What is on the horizon for you, both for your kidneys and with your valley fever? Because I assume that your valley fever is elevated again since you
Yeah.
had all these disseminated areas. What do they, or do they even say what they plan on trying to do if this works or doesn't work and so forth?
You know, my infectious disease doctor, I mean, basically she's just saying what we have to do is just continue to monitor. Um, they say I can't, get it again, but I am getting it again, and it's obviously dormant, but, this area is an area that was problem area before. I mean, for now, I mean, I have different symptoms all the time, and I'm constantly in contact with my, specialist, telling her, hey, like just recently I got x-ray because my lower rib has been constantly hurting. I had pneumonia, so that was another thing they wanted to check was how my lungs were doing. And so far the x-ray is okay. So it's just the only thing that they are telling me right now is just to be closely monitored. When I do ask more questions about future or whatever, it's just they just say that we just have to continue to treatment. Um, Basically, they say I'm going to be on antifungals probably for the rest of my life. As far as the transplant goes, they're waiting until my titer could be 0 for a while. And my last titer was 0, but that's not promising on my part because I could keep a negative titer and it still could be active. So I'm trying to do things like, eat better. I've been eating more vegetables. I've been getting a lot of it's very hard with the kidney disease because I have to get a lot of protein and I have to get, good protein.
Right.
So, and then there's only so many protein supplements I could really take. So it's a very hard balance, but I'm learning it. I'm really, trying to, figure out, the balance between eating to not have an infection again and eating for the kidney disease. So that's kind of, all I think I could do right now until they could figure out, better medications. I don't know.
No one has talked about the new NICZ program, which when and if they ever are able to bring that to fruition, yeah, get that word out there, that's the hope of that is to get clearance,
Yes.
to end it. So hopefully one day, sooner than later, that'll be available. And then that'll be one aspect of what you're dealing with that you won't have to have any more interruptions, which you like from that, and perhaps other things then could start getting better for you.
Yeah. I mean, a cure could be really great for me because, I mean, that would mean I could have another transplant, possibly. For now, it's like, it's still kind of an unknown zone for my doctors, how they're going to progress, how they're going to proceed with me, as far as the future goes I mean, I'm still accumulating time on the list, but like I said, they would have to see this infection clear for a while. And so far, the longest I think I've had as far as a break goes is 2 years. I was able to keep it, it was quiet for 2 years, but the last 2 years I've gotten it around the same time. So I'm trying to see this cycle and, what's happening, during that time that is making it come back. So I just noticed different cycles as far as, me getting it, or it coming back.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. And when we get the video up and running, we'll, of course, let you know right away.
Okay, I hope it works. Thank you. It's great to see you guys. I mean, I've been, following along for some time now, and thank you for everything you guys do.
Well, thanks. I wanted to make a difference after I almost died from my case. And so we've been plugging away for all these years, and it's nice to know that we are helping people.